I feel like anytime someone has a really big life-changing experience, they want to tell everyone about it. And when they try to, it's like if the people haven't experienced that firsthand, it's so hard to put into words. You know, you've got people, I mean, you might have met these people, right? They go off to the jungle and they drink some ayahuasca and they have some sort of life-changing experience and they just want to tell everyone about it and they sound kooky, right? It's like you don't get it, you know? Or people who have experiences with psychedelics and their lives are changed forever, and they try and talk to people who've never even smoked weed and they sound nuts. And it's like, unless you have the first-hand experience, it's kind of like you're talking into the wind, but you can't help but at least try to get the message across because it's changed you in such profound ways. And I think that is why when people have an experience where like they come to know God, right? And they try talking to an atheist or someone who just, you know, doesn't believe or isn't sure, and, you know, they sound like the preacher man on the street, right? You're going to hell. And it's like when people picture a Christian, I think they generally picture someone who's kind of like snobby, sterile, you know, nose up, holier than thou, goes to church, you know, lives in the Midwest, has never experienced psychedelics, has never explored. They just believe because that's what they were taught. And I will tell you that my testimony, which I feel called to start sharing more of because I'm having such a profound experience, is different. And I think I might be able to connect with people who otherwise have been disgusted by religion, because Christ was never meant to be turned into a legalistic, judgmental, dogmatic, disgusting thing called religion. You know, you've got Catholicism, you've got Christian nationalists, people who are bombing people, calling themselves Christian. You've got Zionism. You've got all these real dark, twisted things. And then a lot of people grew up in churches and were around religious folks, and so they have a lot of trauma, and they've gone so far in the other direction like I had, which is you know, all this God stuff is just to make you feel guilt and shame and to control you and to suppress you. And if you're talking about religion, you're absolutely right. The problem with that is that there is so much juice and truth in what Christ was actually saying and doing that is so far opposite from what you see. I mean, the people who call themselves Christians a lot of them act more like the Pharisees, who are the people that Christ was screaming about and fighting, and the people who ultimately killed him. And so I understand, you know, you've got, you know, I was raised in a Christian home, and when I moved away, I explored everything. I thought maybe I'm just Christian because it's how I was raised. So I've been indoctrinated, and I explored everything I could get my hands on. Tantra, I got big into Osho, I got big into New Age, I joined the Hare Krishna movement for a while. I was just seeking, and I knew in my head that if God is loving and wants us to know him, if we earnestly seek, knock and the door will be open, seek and you will find. And there's a lot of things that people call themselves Christians do that are really not in alignment with Christ, who was hanging out with prostitutes and tax collectors and sinners of all kind, right? You know, looking at people with judgmental eyes, or saying that somehow, continued in part 2, I gotta handle something.